I believe we're on live now on YouTube outside Westminster Magistrates Court. Apologies for the delay, we've had a technical issue. Tony Greenstein is inside the court at the moment. He's just spoken to us and he's gone in, and we're waiting to find out what the decision of the hearing is. As you may know, Tony has was arrested last year and accused of terrorism, effectively, and for supporting a prescribed terrorist organisation. What he actually said was that he supported the resistance to the genocide in Gaza. I mean, if that is supporting a terrorist organisation, then I suppose hundreds of thousands, if not millions of us, are all terrorists. This is a massive case because if we can't speak about what's going on with Gaza, then we're in a very difficult situation in our democracy. Look, we've got lots of people who've come out here. As you can see, we've got people. We've got people there just.
Change the world. We're getting rid of the fucking military complex.
Do you want to speak on? We're live on YouTube. Do you want to say something?
Well, we're here till we die, because we ain't going anywhere. This is the most horrific, evil system, and we've got to bring it down, whichever way is possible.
And what does your sign say? Is that something? Is that a new sign that you've got, or do you bring that out a lot? That one, please beat your horn. Is that something you made for today, or do you have that?
Yeah. I just bought that today.
Do you come to a lot of demos like this?
Yes.
Every demo.
Every demo.
Yeah. And I tell you what, we've got to make it clear to the people. It's only us. It's only us that'll change it. Nobody else. We've got to bring down the military complex, and these people are doing just that, because the people that are getting done. There was 11 on Saturday. We went to the women's prison. 11 in jail for 3 months, and they haven't even been charged yet.
What were they charged? What's their?
Well, because they're against the Elbit system, the arms deals.
Is this the Filton one? No.
Yes, there's 21 of them actually.
Oh well.
But there's they're in 3 months and they haven't even been charged for anything. These are 18-year-old girls, women. 18-year-old girls. It just goes to show you how corrupt the system is.
And no one's reporting this really on the mainstream media, are they?
No, because it's all a material world now. People haven't got the idea. As in Tesla says, that half of it should be spiritual. Half of our thinking should be spiritual. Now the people don't even believe that there's anything but material shit.
Right.
We haven't even got a brain anymore.
Well, look. How far have you come to get here? Your headgear's coming off. Do you want me to help you with that? Right, there you go. How far have you come to get here?
I haven't come far. I've only come from Wilston.
Oh, right, not far. Yeah. Right, okay. Yeah. Well, but I've been go further for other ones.
But we shut down the Leicester one. The Leicester, which were making drones, we closed them down. I was up there, it was 100 miles up, I went 4 times. This is what closes them down. We have to keep going. Right. We've got 8 to go, 8 Elbit systems to go. And these, it's the likes of us that'll stop it. Believe me, we've got to keep going. These young people are doing great things. All they're doing is maybe smashing something, a small something. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And they're done.
Okay, well, we better move on a bit here, because sorry.
Anyway, you're doing a great job, Crispin.
Oh, cheers.
And I wish you the very, very best. I believe that people like you move mountains.
Well, so do you.
I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So, are we okay? We all live? I've got I'm just checking if we're actually on live. There's a possibly an issue. I don't know. I'll keep talking as though we are live. It's a very cold wind coming down Marylebone Road as I'm on this microphone. Lots of people beeping their cars as they go past, and we've got lots of people here. Jonathan, do you want to come and talk here? Might have to move the camera a bit because it's very tall. Jonathan, what do you think about this case? Is this a landmark case for you, this Tony Greenstein one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's standing up for the principle of freedom of expression against a machine which is trying to close it down, basically. And I think that it's a problem that affects us all in all domains, but I would see the Palestinian issue as being like the canary in the coal mine. Is they can do it for people standing up for the Palestinians, they can do it on all sorts of domains, and that's what we really need to see this as our problem, not as just a problem for the Palestinians.
I mean, the thing about this is, if Tony Greenstein is jailed for 14 years for effectively just posting stuff to say he supports the resistance to the genocide in Gaza, that means that pretty much, hundreds of thousands of people should be jailed for terrorism as well, isn't it?
Well, you can jail me too if they like. I mean, the whole thing is completely absurd. Tony, like so many of us, support the principle of a resistance against against the oppression of the Palestinians, which really has been going on for 100 years, ever since the British Mandate, which started to repeal Ottoman legislation, which gave customary tenants right to the land, right to use the land, and started facilitating the displacement of Palestinians. Of course, it took off in a massive way in 1948 with the expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians. It's been going on in 1967 and on ever since then. So it's time, we called a stop to the whole thing. All right. Sorry, I don't know if I've answered your question, but
what do you think about the anti-Zionist and movement? Because that seems to be growing. That before people would sort of just say that it's Netanyahu's the problem, or that individualize the issue, but now people are saying it's actually Zionism that is the problem.
Yeah, I think most human beings are not, they're not born evil. It's ideologies which make them evil. It allows the ideology that dehumanizes the other. And the problem with Zionism, in all its, all the manifestations of Zionism which exercise political power, it has required the expulsion of the native people from what is now Palestine. And that goes back to the 1890s. That idea first came out, the idea of what they said then, transferring Arabs, or spiriting them over the border, I think is the words of Theodor Herzl, the founder of Zionism, the father of Zionism. So it's the ideas which are the problems. It's the ideological foundations. We need to talk about them, which is causing the problem. Once people accept there's a problem there, you'll start finding the people themselves, once they realize that, they won't be quite so unreasonable, and they'll start seeing that the other human beings have a right to exist and a right to subsist in the country where they've been living for hundreds and thousands of years.
Right. Yeah. We don't actually know when Tony's going to be coming out. Are you going to be here the whole time? Have you got a flask with hot drink in it?
I think I'm going to have to go and find one. I haven't brought anything. I was going to ask you that question.
Oh yeah, I've got one under here somewhere. I'm just hiding one here.
Oh, well, that's well to be prepared then. Well done.
Thank you for coming over, Jonathan.
Thanks for all you do, Crispin. Okay.
Oh, no, thank you. Now look, we've got other people here who I'd like to speak to. I mean, Haim Bashit is here as well, who was arrested a bit like Tony, but that was after the picket outside Swiss Cottage. I'm just wondering I think Haim Bashit's coming over here. Are you okay to speak on live on YouTube?
Sure.
Great to see you. Thank you for agreeing to speak. It's an honour to be here with Haim Bashit. Now, how significant do you think Tony's hearing is here?
Well, it's very significant at the time that our government is actually having talks with HTS in Syria with a person with $100 million on his head as a terrorist. And here we have Tony Greenstein, who hasn't attacked or done anything or threatened anyone in his life, and is supporting Palestinians who international court decided are suffering genocide, and he is the one in court while our government is working together with terrorists, with real terrorists. So this is a disgrace of British law. This is making the law an ass, and this is done by the government and the police. Now, all this started with the Labour government because the Tories, despite the disgraceful support of Israel, have not arrested us for speaking against genocide. And now Labour is doing that with not just activists, with many journalists, as you know, Asa and Sarah and Richard Medhurst and so on, Craig. So now to speak, to support the international law and to speak against genocide is a crime under British law when the government is supporting real terrorists. This is madness.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about what's happened in the last week, obviously, is this Syria situation. Do you think that's a really big setback for Palestine? How do you see that?
Well, of course it's a setback for Palestine because now the Arab governments are organizing to sign the further Abraham Accords with Israel to normalize the genocide in Palestine and to allow Israel to attack anyone around. This is what they're doing. I mean, Israel is the only country in the 21st century that attacked so many countries and so many people and gets away with it. Not just gets away with it, but actually is supporting doing it. In the last month, they attacked Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen yesterday. So what are we waiting for? They are going to attack Iran next with the support of the American people, or at least their rulers. This is the only country that can break the law and get prizes for it. What is the meaning of international law? If Israel can do what it likes, if the United States can do what it likes, if they can actually take Syria and give it to the most notorious terrorists on earth, what does it mean? Yeah. What is the meaning of terrorism? What is the meaning of international law if the people are breaking it, are leading the largest and most successful governments on earth?
I mean, it just seems really bizarre that Israel is supporting what they'd be called radical Islamists in order to get it to gain further land and stuff. I mean, there just seems to be no morality. If they're calling themselves a Jewish state, that doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Well, they are no more Jewish than the terrorists themselves. There's nothing Jewish about Israel. There's nothing Jewish about what they're doing. Jewish tradition for 2,000 years was very, very different, was the opposite. Jews were many times the victims of genocide and hatred, never the creators of genocide like they are today. So there's nothing Jewish about Israel since its inception in 1948. The other thing, of course, is they have supported HTS before they were called that, when they were called ISIS and when they were called Al-Qaeda. Israel supported them, they armed them, they took them to their hospitals, they passed them money from the Americans. They've done all that for years. This is not new that they support them.
Would you say that Israel in some way had anything to do with like the attacks in London in 7/7? Because I mean, I was nearly blown up in that. I'm just wondering, has that link between Israel and those terrorists been around that long?
It might well have been, but I don't know that any evidence to this came out. But what is clear is Israel is stopping at nothing and will not stop at working with terrorists, because they themselves are terrorists. They assassinated politicians, scientists, people who work for the freedom and rights of Arabs and Palestinians in the Middle East. They keep assassinating people who are resisting what they are doing. They have a right to resist. They should resist, because what Israel is doing is totally criminal.
Yeah, I know. I'm just. What's your feeling on this? Because I mean, you've been campaigning as an anti-Zionist for quite a long time, and you were in the Israeli army, and your story is incredible. But do you feel at all deflated about what's happened since Syria, or do you feel that there's still a good chance that things can be turned around for Palestine?
I think people should not be. People may well be disheartened. So am I. But they should not lose hope, and they should not support the Palestinians. This is the worst time that the Palestinians ever had. This is a very difficult point in their history, and this is when they need us most. So yeah, we are suffering a setback. The Palestinians are suffering a setback. Let this not stop us from supporting them, because they need us the more. They need us now more than they ever needed us. And even if there will be a so-called ceasefire, that's not what we're fighting for. We're fighting for a peaceful, just solution for the Palestinians in Palestine and outside, because many of them, millions, are refugees. We're fighting for their right to return back to their homes and villages and to live in peace with the Israelis who accept freedom and equality.
Well, thank you for your time. It's freezing out here. I mean, are you going to the one tonight in Swiss Cottage as well?
It's tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night. Yeah. Well, you'll be there. Yeah.
Oh well,
you won't stop. Good to see you. Thank you for speaking to us.
As long as I can.
Yeah, my hand's freezing now. Would you come in? Mike from Jewish Voice for Labour's here as well. So it's good to see a lot of different groups here. How do you see this case? Do you think it's how significant do you think this is?
Well, the case, of course, in technical legal terms, is a load of bollocks.
Right.
They want to use Terrorist Act to stop people opposing terrorism. It's sort of we know what the real terrorism is. The terrorism is of Israeli planes bombing Gaza, bombing Lebanon, bombing Syria every hour of every day. And to oppose that is not to support terrorism, it's to oppose terrorism. And I say, for a long time they were content to try to condemn us as anti-Semites, to try to shame us into silence, to stop us supporting Palestinian rights. They found that's failed, that we are more robust than that. So now they decided the only thing to do is to start banging people up to see whether that will frighten us into silence. And it's not going to. I mean, I hope they see sense and drop the case against Tony, but we know he's robust. We know that he won't back down, as he shouldn't, because he's not done anything wrong. And we will be here supporting him, and we'll be here supporting everyone else that they're trying to arrest, because he's not the first and he won't be the last.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, as you say, he is robust. He doesn't really hold back on what he thinks, does he?
Well, no, I mean
that's a strong point, but also some people would say, oh, he should tone it down a bit. Tony should tone it down. So I didn't mean to say it like that. Anyway, what do you think of Tony's character there?
I don't think it should tone down. I think it should be shorter. He always writes to great length. And we all get annoyed with Tony from time to time, but I don't go around trying to feel his collar. I argue with him. I say when he's wrong, and he tells me and I'm wrong. And I'm more right than he is, but never mind. But it's not a matter for the criminal law. If it is a matter for the criminal law, then those people who are supporting the terrorist bombing of Gaza ought to be having their collars felt.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think about the situation? I was just asking Haim Bashir there about the Syria situation. I mean, do you feel disheartened by what's happened there?
Well, seeing the end of Assad has to be a good thing. I mean, there are a lot of bad regimes in the Middle East, a lot of bad regimes all over the world, but Assad seemed to be up there with the worst of them, and to see the back of him is good. What's going to come out of it, we don't know. I mean, we've seen what happened in Iraq, we've seen what happened in Libya, we've seen what happened in Egypt after tyrants were overthrown, but we have to be hopeful. We have to hope the Syrian people get their freedom that they deserve. And what we have to condemn is the Israeli deciding if the Syrian people want to be free, the only reaction is to bomb the fuckers. Now, this can't be right. What made anyone think the Israelis had the right to start bombing Syria after they'd overthrown a tyrant?
Yeah. I mean, the concern is that the support to the resistance in Palestine will dwindle because of Syria's being overthrown. Assad being overthrown and a new regime that seems to be quite quiet about Israel coming in. Is that a concern to you?
It's a concern, but I know nothing about the new regime in Syria, except I know they're in a very difficult situation. They're trying to find their way out of it. But Assad was no great friend of the Palestinians. He arrested many of the Palestinian refugees in his own country. I don't see the fall of Assad as a setback for the Palestinian cause.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I often hear the other way. I hear the other way often, but it's good to hear the other side. Thank you for your time. Have you got a hot drink to go with you today, or how are you going to keep? How long are you planning to stay?
Not too much longer.
Not too much longer, right? It is freezing, isn't it? Yeah. So look, we've got. Would you like to speak? Hiya.
Yeah. Why I support Palestinian cause, I think is why I support. I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and it's just so much injustice going on.
And how long have you? Do you know about this case? Are you supporting Tony Greenstein?
Case, yeah, I vaguely know because they under Terrorism Act or something, and he could be in prison for 14 years. I think. Yeah, and I think it's very irrelevant. They shouldn't be charge him with the Terrorist Act because he doesn't carry on. It's just a speech. Freedom of speech. He shouldn't be a terrorist.
Are you worried about the clampdown on speaking out against the genocide?
Yes, I am worried because I personally worried myself because I go to all the demos and then I feel like they pick and choose who they want to So it's a worry. It's a worry. They're trying to stop us from protesting, but nothing will stop me.
Yeah, and you don't think you'll get arrested or anything, do you?
Well, no, hopefully not. But I was followed by the police before.
You've been followed?
Yeah, I was followed. And luckily, the friends of mine, they were videoing and they asked for under what power because they kept asking me for my details and I wouldn't give it. And I said...
Oh, it looks like someone's being talked to now by the police. So, yeah, there's quite a few police here, aren't there?
Yes, they're trying to harass. We don't know whether they work for helping us, protecting us, or they're paid.
Yeah.
It's very controversial.
Well, I don't want you to get in any trouble, so...
no, I don't care. I mean, what the Palestinians going through is nothing what we're going through.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I'm ready.
Well, thank you for speaking
You're
here.
welcome.
We've also got Sam from the IJAN, who's one of the organisers of this protest, as well as the weekly Swiss cottage picket of the Israeli ambassador. That's the big one. That's the big protest in town. That's where all the big arrests happen. That's where Tony's had his arrest. That's where Haim Bashir's had his arrest. I'm sure there's been a few others. Are you worried about getting arrested?
Well, I almost feel excluded because they haven't arrested me. No, I'm not worried about getting arrested. I would consider it a badge of courage. I don't want to get arrested. We want to keep up the weekly protests. We're not trying to have a fight with the police. We're trying to communicate with each other and to let the public know what's going on and to tell people about what's going on all over the world, the opposition to what's going on in Gaza. And that's the main point of the protest. So our intent is not to get arrested. Our intent is to communicate and to keep protesting. And that's what we want to do.
And can I just ask, because when you started this picket, it was over a year ago, have the numbers increased or have people been intimidated by these arrests?
When we started, there were about 15 or 20 of us. There are now rarely less than 80, and sometimes as many as 150, 200.
Wow.
So the numbers have really gone up. People have heard about it, and people really want the ambassador expelled from this country. There's a petition, and I believe it's gotten 153,000 signatures calling for her expulsion.
Wow.
And so we continue to publicize that petition, and we continue to point out that it is the Israeli government with the support of the British government and the support of the American government. They are the terrorists, and they are the ones who should be put in prison, not Tony Greenstein. And and it is people like the ambassador who has incited genocide by saying as many as 600,000 deaths in Gaza is acceptable. We know as Jews in the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, we know when people are inciting genocide, and that's incitement to genocide.
I mean, the situation in Syria last week, I've been asking people about that. I mean, the change that they're getting rid of Assad. I mean, are you at all demoralised by that? Because obviously Syria was a helpful supply to the resistance in Palestine.
Listen, we believe in human emancipation everywhere. And there's no question, I think, that Assad was a tyrant and a murderer. And I congratulate the Syrian people for having gotten rid of him. That did not constitute an excuse for the Israelis invading and bombing and killing more people. It is not an excuse for the theft of more territory and the expansion of Zionism. The Syrian people must not be further tortured. They must be allowed to be free.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Israel manipulated that situation to grab more land, I mean, how much land do you think they need?
Whatever they can get hold of. It's really horrendous. They want everything. Listen, Netanyahu said very clearly that he could bomb anywhere in the Middle East, and that was a threat to say, as far as they're concerned, a greater Israel is the whole of the Middle East. They want it all if they can get it, and they're being supported by the US government and the UK government, and that is really horrendous. It means our taxes are going to pay for their expansion, their theft, their murder, their terrorism of everybody in the Middle East.
So, I mean, this to me, I just can't stop thinking that they've undermined the whole fabric of the democracy in every country. They seem to be interfering with every country's democracy, and people are beginning to think there's no democracy at all. I mean, isn't it time that the establishment, the political establishment of all these countries just realised Israel is doing them no good at all?
Well, it's doing them no good, but the reality is we have to really question our democracy. It doesn't matter who we vote for, we get a Zionist government. We get people who support this kind of terror. They know what 84% of the UK population wants Netanyahu arrested if he steps in the country. But we have a government that won't even say that a genocide is going on, that won't block the armaments that are creating that genocide. What kind of democracy is that? The people are for one thing and the government is for something else. They have destroyed any semblance of democracy.
And we still come out to protest. Will you ever stop? Will you ever retire?
I will never retire from the struggle for freedom and emancipation of the human race. And that includes the Palestinians, very much the Palestinians. One of the tremendous things is all the movements, the movement for the environment, the women's movement, the gay movement, all these movements have begun to coalesce around the Palestinian movement. They've all come together to support the Palestinians, and we will not stop supporting the Palestinians until they are free.
I think that's a great way to end an interview. Thank you very much, Sam. Good to see you. I'll come down to Swiss Cottage again sometime.
Yeah,
I'll be wearing sunglasses and a fake beard or something, so that certain people won't spot who I am. What do you want me? Oh, you want me to look around here? Look at all these flags. What do you say? I'll move here. Okay, I'll move in here. All right, I'll move back here then. I'm gonna move that way. Apparently, I've got to move that way. And do we have anyone else to speak? Hello, we're live on YouTube.
Live? Oh my God.
But no.
I just haven't got anything
There's only about 5 people, so it's not a big deal. We've got lots of flags here. Do you come to a lot of protests? Have you been to a court hearing outside one before? I've not done this before.
I've not been to a court hearing, but I've been to a few of the demonstrations and stuff, protests. Yeah.
And what do you think about Tony Greenstein being arrested and now facing possibly 14 years for terrorism for just saying that he supports the resistance to the genocide?
I think Keir Starmer should be up there in the dock. Not Tony Greenstein. It's ridiculous. It's that the whole thing is just hypocrisy. I have to be careful about the words I use here, but yeah, it's hypocritical and it's just ridiculous.
I don't want it.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I don't want it to get in any trouble, but the thing is, a lot of people are worried about what they say and stuff like that. The wind's really blowing out. Yeah.
I know.
I think that's That's from the North Sea, that is. So I don't know where that's from. It's cold anyway. And there's a lot of people are scared about saying anything at all.
No,
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that there is this.
They shouldn't be afraid. The more people that come out and show their support, and hopefully the establishment, and I'm talking about the racist royal family as well, hopefully they'll see that they are wrong and we are in the right.
And this sort of racism of like the Palestinians being seen as like a different kind of human being.
It's totally about racism. It's about suppressing people of colour and stopping them from speaking out and standing up for their rights. That's all it's about, because I don't understand why this government and the previous government are using a law, a terrorist law, against people who are fighting for their rights when they themselves are helping to support the Ukrainians in another part of the world. It's just total hypocrisy.
And the thing I find difficult to work out is why some buildings have Ukraine flags all over them, and if you tried to put a Palestine flag on, there'd be uproar, wouldn't there?
I've got a flag outside my house, a Palestinian flag outside my house, and I'll be damned if I'll take it down. The whole thing is just so upsetting, and I just cannot stand it, and I just have to be here for that reason.
Well, yeah, and in the freezing cold.
Absolutely.
Well, have you come far?
No, I'm quite local.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good.
Handy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Now we've got the main man here for the drummer, the main drummer of IJAN. Look at this. Look at this. He's got the big drum. But Jonathan Fluxman, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. A bit cold, but really glad to be here to support Tony.
I mean, I was talking to Sam earlier on about the picket outside the Israeli ambassador's residence or near it in Swiss Cottage. That seems to be a place where a lot of police come and try and intimidate people. Are you intimidated by the police and what they might do, the arrests and stuff?
Well, they try, but no, I'm not intimidated, and all of us are not. They are targeting us because we are anti-Zionist Jews and anti-Zionist supporters as well, and they hate that. They are there at the behest of the state to intimidate us and to try and drive us away, because we are speaking out against this genocide and the Zionist state that's perpetrating it. And we're not going away. We're not going to stop.
I mean, I was also talking to someone about Tony Greenstein, because he's so prolific in his writing, his blogs, and when he speaks, he doesn't really hold back. I mean, it's quite extraordinary how he won't back down at all, Tony Greenstein. I mean, and some people on what they call the left are intimidated by him or say, oh, he's too outspoken. But what's your view on how he does things?
I think it's really important. These terrorism laws are a total joke, actually. They're being weaponized against the movement. At the same time, they're arresting Tony under these terrorism laws. You have British diplomats meeting this al-Jolani terrorist in Syria. It's a proscribed organization with a $10 million bounty on his head in the US. And you have British diplomats standing and talking to him. You have British media plastering him all over the front page. If any of us did that about any of the resistance groups, we'd be arrested straight away. It's such hypocrisy, and it just shows the double standard and the way that the government is using the law to protect their friends and the Zionist entity in Israel. It's an absolute disgrace, and it shows you these laws are a total joke. They are really completely discredited.
I mean, I find it incredible that the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice have both called out Israel for genocide, effectively, and for apartheid. Yet they're able to talk to these people who are terrorists. And Tony Greenstein's possibly facing 14 years for opposing the people who are committing genocide. And no one in the media, I mean, there's one other channel here, I think they're from Lebanon, the guys from Lebanon. I don't think there's any other media here. What on earth is going on? Why are the media not coming out?
Absolutely. You know, the media are also complicit. It's very interesting. Craig Mokaba, who was the ex-UN rapporteur, I forget his exact position in the UN, senior UN official. He says you need three things for the genocide. You need the people who are doing the killing, i.e. the IOF, the Israeli military. You need the politicians to give them the backing and the endorsement. And you need the media to defend it, protect it and hide it away. And that's what our media is doing. And thank you, Crispin, and your show for being here, for supporting people like Tony and Chaim and all the other comrades who've been arrested, because your voice and you giving it publicity is so important. What they want to do is they want to stamp down on it, they want to hide it and do it on the quiet. And what you are doing is preventing that, and it's so important. So we applaud you. Thank you.
Well, look, thank you for doing all that picket every week outside Swiss Cottage. I mean, it's incredible. That I was talking to Sam, the numbers have gone up, even though people are being arrested. It's a bit like that, what's that in Greek mythology, where they cut a head off and another two come back?
That's right, yeah. Well, that's right, the picket's growing and growing. We regularly get 100, 150, sometimes 200 people coming. People are not intimidated by it. They are there because they know it's so important. Hotoveli, the ambassador, is a genocidaire. She has on national television endorsed the genocide, called for the genocide. She should be in jail. She's the terrorist, not Tony. You know, if you think about it, there was this study recently, this week, by I think they called War Child Alliance, and they interviewed a whole lot of Gazan children. They found that 96% of the children in Gaza expect to die imminently. Wow. Now get your head around that. Who are the terrorists? The kids are terrified. They expect to die imminently. And you have people protesting about it, like Tony, who are being locked up and threatened with 14 years in jail. It's a complete joke. And I really hope that the British public and everybody sees through this. And again, your work is so important in exposing this.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you. Keep banging your drum, yeah? Cheers. And we've got, we also got here. We've got Clint Secker, who I spoke to at the protest not long ago in London, and we were talking at that protest about the intimidation of journalists and people speaking out against the genocide in Gaza.
Yeah.
This is really where it comes to the court now, and Tony Greenstein possibly facing 14 years. How long have you known Tony?
Oh, decades.
Decades, yeah? And has he always been a sort of quiet, meek kind of guy?
Well, that's one way of describing him. I don't think most people would describe him.
No, I'm being.
Of course you are, yeah. He's not meek. No, he's very outspoken and courageous.
I mean, Tony was one of the first people to be suspended or expelled from the Labour Party, and he's one of the first to be arrested for terrorism. Is he a trailblazer in some sort of way? I mean, he always seems to be the one who gets the first to be treated in this kind of censoring way.
Yeah, I don't know if he was the first to be chucked out of the Labour Party, but yeah, he's always in the leadership, certainly.
Yeah, and what do you think about how he does things? Because some people think he's really abrasive, he should quieten down, or do you think it's commendable that he just won't stop being Tony?
He does often put his foot in it and then think afterwards, but he's very brave and he's not afraid of saying things that are uncomfortable for the establishment, and that's admirable.
And I mean, with Tony, the other thing about him is that he's probably upset everyone at some point and on some issue, hasn't he? I mean, he'd have an opinion that he'll contradict you on something or other, but that's not enough to not admire him, is it? I mean, some people think, oh, I won't talk to him because he disagreed with me on something, but we tend to just get over that, don't we?
Well, Tony is a bit like Groucho Marx, that he wouldn't join a club that would have him. He's been excluded from most groups that he's joined, and sometimes left of his own volition. That's Tony, you know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I just think sometimes in politics there are different types of characters, aren't there? There are some people, I mean, look at the opposite of Tony is probably Keir Starmer, who sort of says whatever whoever's next to him agrees with whatever the person next to him says. So, I mean, Tony's the opposite. He'll disagree with everything you say.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about Starmer, I was just reading on my way in that Starmer refused an entry visa to a Palestinian child coming here for medical treatment after having had both his legs blown off in Gaza. And the child's now being treated in Italy. That tells me all you need to know about Starmer. It's atrocious. But let me just come back on Tony and the charges he's up against here. Presumably it was because he tweeted that he would support Hamas against the Israeli army. And the definition by the British government of Hamas being a terrorist organisation presumably is the grounds for the charges here today. My response to that sort of designation of Hamas is to say we need to learn from black history. We need to learn from the principal slave uprising, which was in Haiti in 1791, when they killed 7,000 French civilians, women, children, babies, the elderly. Yeah, it was a crime against humanity, but no one deems to describe that slave uprising or any subsequent slave uprisings as acts of terrorism. They're all clearly understood to be driven by the context of the brutality of slavery. And if we look at what's happened in Gaza and for the Palestinians since 1936, 1948, the Nakba, 20 villages destroyed, women, children annihilated by the Zionist forces then. The brutal occupation from 1967, the massacres of Sabra and Shatila and Jenin, the 17-year bombardment of Gaza, the blockade of Gaza, and now, well, the stated 40,000, 45,000 deaths, but it probably, as the Lancet said, more like 186,000 and growing all the time. That's a century of oppression by Israel, brutal oppression, and you are going to get a rebellion. And the rebellion is their responsibility because they created the circumstances in which people had no choice after 17 failed peace negotiations over decades. Generates that type of crime against humanity, but you can't describe it as terrorism any more than you could describe Mandela as a terrorist because he was a member of the MK, the armed wing of the ANC. Right. You have to have the historical understanding.
And also this sort of flexibility on what a terrorist organisation is when you see what the HTS is now being discussions with the British diplomatic service. I mean, if Hamas was suddenly to be in control of Israel or in control of Palestine, I mean, would I'm sure the British government would suddenly say, oh well, we better talk to them. It's just it's who's in control, who's the boss, well, isn't it, or something of that nature?
Yeah, I think the difference is that with HTS, that whole development, you can be sure, did not come as a surprise to the British Secret Service, American CIA, and so on. They, it dates back decades to supporting the opposition in Syria and you can be sure that they were behind that development, and they were prepared, and they backed it from the moment it arose a couple of weeks ago when it overthrew Assad. So that was part of the Western program in the Middle East. They never maybe predicted the exact moment when it would happen, but in itself it wasn't a surprise to them. Whereas Hamas is in a different context for the British and the Americans, so I'm not quite sure it would come out in the same way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very some people are a bit down about what happened in Syria because of there being an access to the resistance through Syria from Iran, and that being cut off, perhaps. Yeah, What's your view on that?
Well, I'm not at all sure about this concept of the access of resistance. I mean, you see what Assad did to the Syrian Arab Spring. You know, it was a brutal crackdown, and we've seen now the unearthing of the graves of hundreds of thousands of people who were fighting for their liberty. So, and also, you know, there's now in some of the papers uncovered evidence of Israeli-Syrian Syria working together over the last decades of the Assad regime. I'm not sure that I would describe Assad as ever been part of the axis of resistance. I mean, what material steps did he ever take to support the Palestinians? I can't find them.
I'm not sure. I just know that that's been said that he was a support to Hezbollah or something.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
he did support Hezbollah, and that was the territorial route through which they got their arms from Iran. But actually, very little of that translated in support for the Palestinians. Right. I mean, not even Fatah, let alone Hamas. It was really about what Jonathan Cook describes as the chess game of international politics and force, you know.
Right. So it's not very clear. It's not certain what the future is in Syria, whether it's good or particularly bad. I mean, you don't feel one way or the other.
Well, I feel very deeply for the Syrian people who are suddenly out in the streets celebrating their freedom. Obviously, I really hope that freedom continues and that they do build some alliance between all the groups. But the main players, America, Israel, Turkey, are very heavily involved, and it's in Israel's interest for Syria to just fragment into different warring groups so that they don't actually have a united front against Israel's oppression of the Palestinians. So that's where Israel will be going with this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time again. Good to see you, and keep warm, yeah? It's freezing. So we've got other people here who've just come out. Would you like to come and speak on the YouTube? We're just talking about Tony Greenstein. Have you known Tony Greenstein for long? Do you know?
Not personally.
No?
Not personally, but I'm here to stand with anybody in there, whoever it was, who's speaking up for justice. I will be by their side. So
what do you think about the use of terrorism legislation to silence people about speaking up for people in Gaza?
I think that we are. What kind of a backwards world do we live in, where the people who are standing up for peace and justice and for the end to the killing and suffering of people are locked up, and the people who are instigating the violence are running free? When someone has an arrest warrant, he's going out wherever he wants, Netanyahu, I mean. And, you know, he's free to do what he wants. He has all the power and the influence that he needs or wants. And yet those who are just simply saying stop killing children are behind bars or being tried or being silenced. It's such a backwards world. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation. I'm just hearing that Tony's got. So there's hearing some news about Tony. I'm not sure exactly what this is. Yeah, something's coming out. I think Tony's coming out. Is there an update on Tony?
Whatever this court says, whatever it does, we know that they cannot shut Tony up. He will continue to speak for the Palestinians and for the freedom of Palestine.
So look, I'm a bit distracted because we just heard something about Tony's.
And as another anti-Zionist,
Tony might be coming out soon, I think. Tony might be coming out soon. I'm not sure when he'll be here, but we'll be here when he does, so we can talk to him. Apparently he's coming out soon. So do we have Yale Khan is here, and what's happening with Tony? Do you know?
I just wondered if you'd heard.
No.
They've given him bail. He's on bail, and he's due to reappear on the 31st of January. 2025. Yes.
So
and he's going to come out soon, apparently, and address us.
Right, he's going to be out soon, and he's got to appear again on the 31st of January next year. So in about a month's time. And he's on bail, so he's coming out. So we're going to see Tony in a second, hopefully. Do you want to bring the camera up to? Oh, we've got. I think we should go and we'll go and see when Tony comes out. Should we go a bit nearer to the? Can you do it? Give us a good one on that. Go on, show us your best drum roll. Go on. Here we go, there. Hold on, what have you?
According to Sam, he's not allowed to leave the country in the meantime.
Oh, he can't leave the country. He's got to stay in Brighton. He's got to stay in Brighton all until then, or whenever. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for everything you're doing, and thank you for your little segment when you filmed me before.
Oh no, it's great to speak to you. Yeah, you look much warmer than you were then in this hat and stuff. Yeah.
Anyway,
thank you. So, should we go and have a look and see if Tony's on his way out? Right, we're going to see if Tony comes. Tony's coming out.